everyone, and welcome to Serious Sunday. I am Luke.
I am super serious, John.
And we are here this week. Yes, we have John with us this week, and so we got... you guys don't have to listen to me prattle on for 15 minutes straight for once.
Yeah, you get me for 7.5.
Yes, but it's interspersed.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, if someone was going to play deafening, horrible music in your ears, I guess you'd want them to do one at a time.
Yes.
Just to give your other ear a break. Just to bleed for a moment. Too far? Too far.
No, it's good. We're good.
What were we going to talk about today? Speaking of ears bleeding?
We are going to talk about the free-to-play model, also frequently referred to as freemium.
Oh, the dreaded free-to-play model. I can't believe we're still talking about this.
Everybody hates free-to-play. Well, I mean, yeah, geez, how long has it been since like free-to-play first sort of gained the ire of the general gaming public?
Oh, God, forever. It's had such a bad name ever since... I guess what happened was like most video game trends, they sort of moved their way west from Asia, and
well, they probably crossed the Pacific Ocean. We'll say east is fine.
Either way, geography aside,
they
were games originally that were for a completely different audience, where free to play or freemium or whatever we're going to call it was the way they did things. Microtransactions, we'll call them.
Yes.
Which just means paying
as they are known of now.
Yes. So what really happened was the games that came over weren't well localized. They were very niche to sort of that segment of the Western world that really enjoys all things Eastern. So with everybody else, they kind of got a bad reputation as being bad games.
Which, to be fair, a lot of them were.
Well, yeah, but you got to remember they weren't localized at all, really, beyond text, which was localized, if I recall, very, very poorly. But there were no
translated, but not localized.
That's a better way to say it. Yes, if you want to use the proper use for the words, I suppose, if you want to go that way.
That used to be one of the things I did. So yeah, we can go with that.
Well, okay. No, I know better.
Yeah.
I just sit here and say things. I've never done it.
Well, one of these days I'm going to get my buddy Ryan, who does all the localization coordination. Well, not all of it, but a decent amount of localization coordination over at Xseed. But we'll,
that's a whole other topic.
He's already on board. I just have to find a game that he worked on, so that looks good for the show. So
it's a whole other show for a whole other time.
Absolutely. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about. He still works on premium games, unlike us.
No, yes. Fair, I guess fuck it.
Fair warning?
Yes. We both work for a company that makes freemium, free-to-play games, so
yes, that's
take
right.
what we say in that context, I guess.
Well, we work in the mobile space right now. I got my start in console, so I've also done premium games. So I've kind of been on both sides of the coin, if that's the correct way to sort of put that. Were you working in premium games before you moved over to freemium, or have you kind of always been in the premium
well,
space,
I was premium at my last studio before this one, but
right.
For 10 years at MMORPG.com, I mean, MMOs were the first things that really started to have microtransactions, so I've...
Certainly the first that people were willing to pay for.
Yeah, and certainly the first that got popular in the West here. And,
yes.
We can go into that for sure, but...
Certainly.
Yeah, I've been dealing with this conversation for, well, what amounts to, like, almost 15 years now. So that can't be right.
Yeah,
that can't be
well,
right.
No,
what year did
yeah,
DDO?
Right. It's like, oh my God, has it been 15 years since we've started dealing with this bullshit? But it has. It totally has. Like, I don't know when World of Warcraft came out, but I was still just graduating university, I think, at the time. So
I'm trying to find desperately when they did this. It was Dungeons and Dragons Online. Turbine was the name of the country.
Was it DDO? Was the first?
DDO was the first real Western game that went that route. They were what allowed everybody else to. They broke the seal. I mean, to use the crassest drinking term possible, or the coolest mythological.
Open the floodgates.
Either way, the seal was broken, and or just real animal cruelty.
It may also probably be worth noting before we really get into the meat of the conversation that I was actually partially responsible for one of the first almost definitely one of the first mobile or handheld freemium games on the PlayStation Portable. Back when I was working at Acquire in Japan, a game that never made it over into the West called Bakumatsu Revolution. It was a roguelike that was free to play with lots of, with like microtransactions to buy special items and things like that. Of course, we were really experimenting at the time, and this was before like people had figured out the whole idea of just buy gems and buy everything with that. So,
it
was
back when it was really
I'll
complicated.
get into that soon.
Yeah. Before people started using the surrogate currency that,
Yeah, the whole concept of hard currency that you buy with real money.
Okay, I feel much better now. It looks like DDO went free-to-play, that's Dungeons & Dragons Online, went free-to-play in 2009.
Okay,
so
was it so recently?
Yeah, this has been on my radar, I guess, for 7 years.
Okay.
So that's a little more reasonable and makes me feel just a little less old.
I get the feeling
my balls
that,
actually
there has
came back
to have
up.
Been more free to play going on prior to that, but we'll say that maybe that was one of the earlier ones in the West.
Sure, let's say that.
Yeah.
It's when it first came on my radar. So
it was
definitely.
I'm fairly certain that Evany and stuff like that was around before that, and Evany was a free to play thing. Right?
I think, though, in the PC space, which I think is where it sort of
Evany
became
was a browser
more.
Game.
Was it?
Yeah,
I keep thinking it was a mobile game, but I guess it wasn't. No, it was because that was around.
We didn't have smartphones.
What a
then,
nonsense! We'll talk about Evany in another friggin' episode because that's a whole other rant.
Oh man, Evany deserves its own.
That's a rant that's
going
to get us in trouble with Gamergate. Is what that is.
I don't know. It might bring in some. I don't know. Who knows? But anyway.
So, DDO hits the Western market as a standard MMO subscription style, like the West had done it all the time before that.
Right.
Tanks. Just absolutely tanks. Mostly owing to the fact that it was very instanced. It played more like Guild Wars, which at the time was you just paid the purchase price of the game and then you had access forever. That was their
which was
model.
Insane.
Yeah, it definitely died a death, didn't it? That model.
You don't really see that very much anymore. Unfortunately, I like that idea in retrospect. Certainly, I was actually one of the diehard sort of detractors of the free to play model myself very early on. Now, I can obviously say that I've turned 180 on that one in my years doing game development, but. Yeah.
I think a lot of people that came up with it at the same time that you and I did, so older nerds?
Yeah, the console generation, or the packaged console generation, right?
Yeah.
Before we had internet, and therefore before the idea of downloadable content was even possible, right?
Yes, back when our games were all on discs because hard drives in consoles weren't a thing.
Well, they might have been a thing, but certainly,
thing.
It was. Yeah.
Anyway, so we went off on that little tangent, and I completely forgot what I was saying.
Which we do. Well, you were talking about how DDO was kind of one of the first ones that
did
the free-to-play model in the West.
Wildly successful right out of the gate with that changeover. It changed the fortune of that game overnight. And that's when the West, especially in the MMO space, that's when the West really started to pay attention to this little thing that I believe at the time was considered to be just for, that's maybe just for phones.
I don't suppose that Turbine ever went public with any information about ARPU or ARPPU or anything like that, did they?
Oh God, no. No, getting information from there were some vague numbers thrown around and some speculation and that sort of thing, but I don't recall there being any, solid fact other than people who know, wise people who follow markets and shit find out.
Right. I should probably just let people know, for the people who aren't familiar with market talk and shit like that the words I just threw out, ARPU, ARPU, and ARPPU, stand for
They're
average
disgusting
revenue per
bathroom
user
humor. Don't listen to him.
Average
He's
revenue
just
per
making potty
paid
jokes.
user.
That's what he does. Yeah, that's right. I talked over
it
him, and I'm doing it right now again.
How much?
So that's what I do.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I'm done.
Are we okay?
I'm done.
Okay. So ARPU is average revenue per user, which means the average of all money that comes into the game divided by the number of users that are playing the game. ARPPU is average revenue per paid user, so the amount of money that all paid users basically pay into the game divided by the number of paid users. Simple as that.
Statistics. It's a bunch of statistics.
Yes. Currently in the mobile space, the number of paid users floats around 2.2%, and ARPU is something in the realm of $2. ARPPU is about $25. Just for everybody's sort of personal edification, this information is readily available on newzoo.com.
You gonna plug Yankee Candles next, or?
Oh, I might, but no, like that's one of the easy places to find it. Like you used to have to like paid App Annie or something like that to find these sorts of numbers. So, but I think people probably want to know this kind of information just so that they know. Well, okay, we're doing this big free to play model. Is there even money in it? Right? I mean, obviously there is. Clash of Clans is richer than most small countries at this point, like Supercell.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So yeah, it was adopted, or at least sort of accepted to a certain extent. Put in very, very bold quotation marks by the West when Turbine did it. But yeah, there have been some arguments against it, detractors.
Of course there are, because it's something different and new, and isn't the way we used to do it. And girls might like it. I don't know. It's I don't get it. It's I can see the resistance to change as things were moving over and things were still rocky in terms of really shady practices in design, which still exists today, but not nearly in the numbers it used to. Right? You should be able to get an idea of a company pretty quickly by just following their stuff. It becomes pretty obvious pretty fast whether they're for real or not. But there's some people that just aren't willing to give it a chance because there's this perception that in games, real life money shouldn't matter because you're getting away. It's a fantasy experience, this, that, and the other thing, which is cute.
Right, creative industries shouldn't have to make money or something like that, right?
Yeah, well, that's the problem, right? It's a cute pie in the sky
I know
interpretation.
it's a straw man argument. I'm sorry. It's just that's where it ultimately ends up.
Yeah, it's just it hurts me.
I know.
It takes a lot of. I mean, no, you know what? I'm not going to lecture anybody. It's shitty to steal from people. That's all I'm saying.
It's absolutely true. But yeah, so
let's talk
a little bit about.
Sorry, let me. I'll go. We'll talk a little bit about the. Actually, let's just talk about free to play as a model, like why it's good, or why.
Yeah,
sorry. Why not necessarily why it's good, but why that's where we went.
Why people use it and sort of what it really is, right?
Yeah, I think
the
first thing to understand, and it's something that I think is a really hard pill for some people to swallow, is that video games are a business, the same way movies are a business, the same way television is a business. It's a business.
It's an entertainment industry.
Yeah, what I mean by that is that it's people working on it that are their livelihoods depend on it. It's something that is for money. You sell it. How you decide to charge for it, though, is something I think that every high-powered dev team, I should say, people at the top of the dev chain, have. It's a very big decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
this isn't to say that people don't do premium anymore. They certainly do, but
to a much more
extent. Difficult. Yeah, it's just become so much more difficult to do premium content these days.
Well, yeah, because people aren't willing to. We've set it up so that people aren't willing to accept anything other than free to play. Well, at the same time,
they don't want to monetize.
Yeah, like if you make a premium game for the App Store, so the Apple App Store, you're far less likely to make money. than you are
It's
with a
absolutely
freemium game,
true.
unless you're like Maxis or EA.
Well, yeah, unless
or
you're a big name studio who's come from the premium world and is releasing what is the sort of equivalent of a AAA product on mobile, right?
Yeah, or if you're releasing anything really with a AAA brand, right? That stuff always gets like Parker Brothers games, for example. Those are still premium.
Yeah, sure. But again, like that even goes even I think deeper than the average like current AAA software developer, all the way to like board games, and board games are have always been reasonably expensive, right?
Oh yeah, well it's
Yeah.
there's a lot of work that goes into it. What free to play does though is it serves the makers of the game, the companies behind it. It serves them in that they're able to use it, and it's a proven method of making money within this industry. It presents certain design challenges and certain other things like that that require remembering that it's a business. Somebody's got to get paid at some point. Yeah, I've lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Well, why don't I rewind us just a slight bit and talk about why you can't do premium content on mobile anymore, because it didn't used to be the case. There was a point where like $5 apps were kind of the norm, right? Before people even started really doing free to play on mobile. I mean, it existed in sort of the MMO space, but it was in this kind of a weird place, I think, for quite a while, in my opinion.
Well,
like I might be wrong, but
on the App Store, there was a really neat evolution, right? You could see, because it went from like $5 apps being the norm, and then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, over like a year or two, it became no one was willing to pay over $1 for a game. So you had all these 99-cent $1 games there. Then
I'll get on my soapbox about Angry Birds and what they did to the industry some other time. Well, then people weren't really willing to pay $1 for a game, but $1 per game is still something that people have to pay, right? But if you make your game $1, that means that if you ask for more money later on, people will get upset because they've already paid for their product.
Yeah, although that is a model a lot of bigger studios are trying to use right now, and I mean we can get into the evils that I feel are in that at some other time.
Well, I mean, there becomes this big, long conversation about expansion content and things like that, and expansion packs and microtransactions within paid content, like, the stuff that happens with, like, Borderlands, for example.
Yeah.
But I find that the mobile space, being, by definition, reasonably casual, is less more sort of accepting of the idea of free-to-play straight up, but sort of less willing to pay a large sum up front and then supplement the game with more.
Yeah, I mean
with mobile content, it's a little bit more difficult, I think, just because of the volume and sort of size of the average product and the limitations of the platform in general. But
yep. So after the $1 games, everything had to have a light version. That was basically a little free trial, I guess, is another term that was used. So you got
paid demos, or not really paid demos, but
free demos, light, and they called them light versions.
Free to start.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. It was a very small portion of the game you got to play, and then you'd give the option to upgrade to the premium version, which would give you the rest of the game, which was an interesting idea. It satisfied the need that gamers have to experience the games before they really commit to them, which is an interesting trend.
Yeah.
But,
and sort of also satisfies the definition of the average demo.
Yes.
Which I think people are a lot more sort of accepting of. But those didn't last very long either.
No, they didn't, because they didn't work very well.
Well, they certainly didn't lead to a lot of conversions. I actually worked on a free-to-start game myself. Acquire, the company I worked at from 2009 to 2012 and a half-ish. We were part of the reboot of the Wizardry series back in the day. It was
all right.
an old Canadian, sort of company's game. But big in Japan. Had this sort of revival, and IPM, who's sort of the licensors of the Wizardry label, came to us because we did similar sort of first-person roguelike games in the Class of Heroes series, and we were asked to, or perhaps we went to them. I don't know. I wasn't at the top. I wasn't at the top of the food chain for that particular project, but we got in touch. There was contact made, and then the idea was that we were going to make a game on PlayStation 3 that was Wizardry. And in order to build interest with players, the idea would be that you could play the first level or maybe 2 levels of the dungeon for free, and make your characters and level them up to like level 5 or something like that before you had to buy the game.
Yeah.
Before you had to buy the rest of the game's content. And it was a single purchase. It also had microtransactions. It was a weird sort of thing.
That was a period of time though where everything was still finding its footing. Plus, you were in the Asian market, weren't you?
Yeah, we were in Japan. Well, I was in Japan.
Yeah. So the Eastern market for those of us in the Western market, we might not realize how different gaming trends are in the East.
So different.
But it's a completely different thing. And
I
Luke
had
should probably do a show about it at some
Twitter
point.
The last couple of days.
What?
About I've ranted just a little tiny bit on Twitter the last couple of days about the pitfalls of by Japan, in Japan, for Japan game development. So
yeah,
I'll get into that some other day.
It's interesting.
yeah.
But I mean, as far as free to play goes. Which,
yes.
My goodness,
that's
we
the
have
topic
meandered.
We're on today.
I mean, and I think it's a topic we'll have to come back to. My thought
absolutely.
is we're going to look at this episode, I think, as a bit of a primer on what we're talking about, so we can get into the real meat of the situation. I think what we learned today is that you really do have to sort of understand where this all started to really get a sense of why it is the way it is today.
Yeah, I'll call it a brief history of free-to-play.
Yes.
And how we got to where we are right now, right?
There and back again. We hope you enjoyed it. We stumbled through it like I just stuttered my face off there.
Oh, we always do, though. That's Serious Sunday for you. It's a podcast.
It's like people listen to us.
There's no research. We're looking shit up while we go. We're cutting out parts of dialogue. It's good.
We're lying.
Yep.
Just making shit up.
Lying like dogs.
This is weird saying because dogs have never lied to me.
I don't know. Maybe they lie all the time. Maybe they're compulsive liars, but you just don't speak to them.
Maybe they're compulsive liars, but they're wrong a lot.
There you go. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. Free to play. Woo! We will talk more about this, we'll say next week.
Yes.
All right. See you guys tomorrow for more whatever we play on Mondays.
Excellent.
I can look this up.
Welcome to the most lackluster outro of the show.
For Chiku, episode 2. Yes.
Oh, Chiku's cool. Actually, watch Chiku. It's hilarious.
It's good.
Bye.
See you, guys.